They told her she didn't belong. They told her to take off her uniform. But they had no idea they were talking to a legend in disguise. This isn't just a story of a black woman wronged. It's a story of what happens when quiet strength becomes undeniable power, a decorated pilot humiliated in front of her peers, a system built to exclude her, and a moment that flipped everything upside down. What you're about to hear isn't just military history. It's human triumph. From public shame to global legacy, this is the rise of Commander Amara Ellison. Stay until the end, because the moment she took off wasn't just flight, it was revolution. And if you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still believes. Excellence has a color, because after this story, they won't anymore. They told her to take off her uniform. She didn't speak, she didn't flinch. She simply stood there still as steel, while every eye in the hangar shifted toward her. "That's not your place, Sergeant. You don't belong in that cockpit," the voice was loud, booming, and drenched in condescension. Colonel Everett R. Langston, 56, 3 decades of service and no patience for what he called political experiments, pointed at her like she was a trespasser, not a decorated soldier. The hangar was quiet before. Now it was buzzing with stifled whispers, the whirring of phones set to record, and the silent judgment of 180 uniformed witnesses. And in the middle of that silence, she stood. Sergeant First Class Amara Ellison, 31 years old, 6 years of service, veteran of multiple deployments, survivor of things no briefing could prepare you for. And now, the subject of public humiliation, her uniform tailored, crisp, and covered in medals that spoke louder than any defense she could mount, suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Each ribbon, each star, each patch stitched into her sleeve, it all felt like someone else's memory. The kind of memory people like Langston didn't want to believe she earned. "Take off that flight suit," he barked again. She inhaled slowly, not out of fear, but because this was the kind of moment where you had to decide who you really were. Was she just another name on a roster, or was she something more? "Colonel," she began, voice controlled but steady. "My record shows—" "Record?" he interrupted with a sneer. "You sat in a simulator for a few hours and now think you're Top Gun." There were chuckles from the back. Some nervous, some mean, some the kind that only come from people too afraid to speak truth, yet too proud to stay silent. Amara's hands trembled, not from fear, but from fury. But she steadied them, because fury would only feed their narrative. "You're here because of a quota. Let's not pretend otherwise," Langston said, pacing slowly. He stopped just feet away from her. "We're not handing out billion-dollar jets to anyone just because it looks good in a brochure." Amara said nothing. Instead, she looked him in the eye. And that look was louder than words. A look that said, "I earned this," but no one moved. No one stood beside her. No one said a thing. Instead, they watched, some with pity, some with discomfort, others with quiet approval. And as the colonel gestured again for her to strip her rank and walk away, something inside her shifted. A thought came, sharp as a blade. "They really don't know who I am." She removed her gloves, then the name tag, then one by one the commendation bars, her silver star, her distinguished flying cross. Each one hit the floor with a sound that felt like betrayal, until only one medal remained, a small, black unmarked badge curved at the edge. She looked at it, held it in her palm, and for a second she smiled, just a trace. Not because she was happy, but because that medal meant something no one in that hangar could comprehend. It wasn't awarded in public. It didn't appear in official records, and it came from someone whose name wasn't printed on any military ID. She tucked it into her pocket, folded the uniform carefully, laid it on the floor, then turned to the colonel. Her voice was low, measured. "Thank you for showing me exactly what you stand for." She paused. "And thank you for reminding me exactly who I am." She turned, walked out of the hangar, one step at a time, back straight, head high. No one followed, but every eye stayed on her, and no one forgot what they had just seen. Because sometimes it's not the flight that shows your strength. It's how you stand before you take off. The walk out of the hangar wasn't the first step. It was the last straw. Because for Sergeant First Class Amara Ellison, the battle didn't start with Colonel Langston. It started months earlier, long before anyone called her a token. Back when, she was reassigned from her post in Okinawa to a special integration initiative at Fort Bishop, Texas. The email had sounded noble. "We are pleased to select you for an elite pilot mentorship program." It spoke of leadership, opportunity, innovation. But when Amara arrived, reality was colder than the barracks in January. Her first day, someone had left a note in her locker. It read, "Fly high, diversity higher." She didn't report it. She'd seen worse. But that was just the beginning. The so-called mentorship program was nothing more than a PR campaign. The Air Force had been under pressure, too many headlines, too many questions about inclusivity. So they brought in Amara, a photogenic black woman, accomplished, articulate, and as they saw it, perfect to stand beside press releases and recruitment posters, but not perfect enough to actually fly. During her first briefing, Captain Reed, a lean man with a charming smile and a spine full of prejudice, had introduced her to the squadron. "Folks," he'd said with a grin, "this is Sergeant Ellison. She's our gift from HQ. Smile for the cameras." There was laughter, then silence, then the kind of tension you don't talk about but everyone feels. Her new colleagues weren't openly hostile. Not most of them. They were something worse, politely dismissive, quietly undermining. She was always the last to get mission assignments. Her simulator hours were frequently rescheduled. Her flight suits went mysteriously missing. And her locker, broken into twice, reports filed, no follow-up. But Amara didn't complain, she observed, she documented. Every slight, every snide comment, every convenient error in paperwork. She started a secure journal, encrypted, time-stamped, stored off base. Not because she expected justice, but because she knew she would need evidence. Then came the whispers, from behind closed doors, in the rec room, in the mess hall. "She's only here because of her skin. Affirmative action wings," quota queen. But Amara had learned from her grandmother, a woman who cleaned hospitals in Savannah for 30 years. "Child," she used to say, "let 'em whisper. You speak through action." So, Amara trained harder, studied longer, asked smarter questions. She started noticing patterns, the way mission logs got altered, how her evaluations were lower than others, even when performance was identical. She cross-referenced everything. Built, timeline, a case, and then there was Lieutenant Kyle Jensen. He was the only one who didn't look away when others smirked, didn't laugh at the jokes, didn't pretend not to hear. One night after a late shift, he caught up to her. "You know they're scared of you, right?" She looked at him, puzzled. "Because I'm black?" "No," he said. "Because you're better than them, and you don't even brag about it." That night, for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe, to believe maybe not everyone was the enemy. But belief is fragile when the walls are thick. 1 week later, her flight controls malfunctioned mid-test. The investigation claimed it was a maintenance oversight, but Amara had checked that jet herself the night before, twice. She knew sabotage when she saw it. She filed a report, got a polite thank you. Nothing more. When she finally met with Major Christina Alvarez from Internal Oversight, she laid it all out. Names, dates, evidence. Alvarez nodded slowly. "Sergeant," she said, "this is serious, but without visible harm." Amara leaned in. "You want visible? Wait until someone crashes. Then you'll have headlines, not just paperwork." The major blinked, tightened her jaw, and said nothing more. By the time Langston arrived on base for his inspection tour, Amara's reputation had already been carved into the walls. Not the one she earned, but the one others told each other over coffee. She was the outsider, the symbol, the threat. And when he ordered her to remove her uniform in front of everyone, It was not a surprise. It was a crescendo, a public performance of what they'd been rehearsing in private for months. But what they didn't know, what none of them saw, was that Amara Ellison was not the one on trial. They were, and she had receipts. Literal. Humans meticulously filed, legally protected, waiting for the day when silence would end and voices would rise. 3 days after the hangar incident, Amara sat alone in a diner on the edge of El Paso. It was late. Past midnight, the air outside was dry and still. Inside, the neon lights buzzed, and the coffee tasted like burnt hope. She stirred her cup slowly, watching the cream swirl into darkness. Then she looked up. A man in civilian clothes entered the booth across from her, salt and pepper hair, eyes like granite. General Marcus Thorne. Retired, officially, but still holding the kind of authority most couldn't buy with a dozen stars. He didn't speak right away, just placed a black folder on the table. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded once. He opened the folder. Inside, satellite photos, redacted memos, a list of operation codes. Amara scanned them quickly. Her eyes didn't blink. Her face didn't change, because she already knew. This wasn't just a cleanup. This was the reckoning. Thorne leaned forward. "This goes beyond Langston. We've been tracking patterns. Minority officers discredited, fast-tracked for discharge. Same units, same COs, same methods." He slid another photo across the table. It was a group shot. 17 faces, all different shades of black, brown, and something other than white. All former, all gone. "They were like you," he said. "But none of them had what you have." Amara raised a brow. "What's that?" "Visibility," he said. "And a folder full of truth." She looked out the window. The parking lot was empty, except for one black SUV parked 2 blocks down, unmarked, watching. "So what's the play?" she asked. Thorne tapped the folder. "You don't fight this with press releases. You show them what real excellence looks like. Not behind closed doors, but 200 feet above their heads." Her eyes narrowed. "You want me to fly. I want them to watch you fly." He paused. "And I want it streamed, live, on every screen on that base." Amara sipped her coffee. It still tasted like burnt hope, but this time she smiled. "What do I fly?" "Raptor," he said simply. She blinked. Not a simulator, not a training model. The real deal, the newest configuration. F-22, built for stealth, speed, and storytelling. Amara exhaled slowly. "Where is it?" Thorne leaned back. "Ever hear of Falcon Ridge?" Her eyes widened. Falcon Ridge was a rumor. A whisper passed between pilots over drinks. An airstrip that didn't exist on maps. A base that never got mentioned in the news. She nodded. "I've heard the stories. Time to make one," he said. 3 hours later, she stood in a hangar unlike any she'd seen. Silent, Spartan, efficient. The Raptor stood in the center. Matte black, unmarked. Waiting. Captain Lane, the test pilot assigned to support her, handed over a flight tablet. "She's ready for you, Ellison." "They know," Lane shrugged. "They will." That night, Amara slept in quarters beneath the airfield. No windows, no clocks, just the hum of destiny getting louder. The next morning, she suited up, tied her braids back, tightened her boots, and walked to the bird. It was time, not for revenge, but for revelation. Across the country, Langston bragged in the officers' lounge. "She's gone. Never belonged." He toasted to standards, but the toast would curdle because 24 hours later, every officer on Fort Bishop would be ordered to Hangar 1 for a high-value demonstration of future combat tech. Mandatory attendance. No excuses, and at 800 they would look up, and everything they thought they knew would burn away in the sound of a sonic boom. It started with a vibration. Every officer on Fort Bishop received the same alert. Mandatory briefing, Hangar 1, 0800 sharp, full dress uniform. No one knew why. Whispers filled the corridors. Speculation buzzed like static. Some said it was a tech demo from Lockheed, others a surprise inspection from the Pentagon. Langston frowned when he read it. No prior notice, no chain of command prep. It reeked of bureaucracy. He didn't like surprises, but he liked authority. So he straightened his collar and headed to Hangar 1. By 0745, 300 officers stood shoulder to shoulder. The air buzzed with idle chatter. Bradley Kincaid, the squadron's loudest, mouth pulled out his phone. "What do you bet it's some new VR simulator?" His friend snorted. "Or a recruitment stunt, another diversity innovation." They both laughed. Then the lights dimmed. The hangar doors creaked open. A gust of wind blew in, followed by silence. And then, thunder. But not from the sky, from the sound barrier breaking. A jet screamed past at 200 feet. Too fast to register, too clean to be commercial. Everyone froze. Phones pointed skyward. "Did you see that? That's not standard issue." The jet circled back. Lower, slower. This time they saw it matte black. Sleek. A silhouette carved from science fiction. The F-22 Raptor. It dipped into a roll, then a vertical climb, then stillness. Mid-air. Perfect stall. Followed by a flawless inverted. Dive gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Langston's face twitched. Who the hell is flying that? Then a voice came over the base intercom. Ghost 1, requesting landing clearance. The jet approached. Touchdown was velvet. It rolled to a halt at the edge of the hangar. The canopy lifted, and out climbed Amara Ellison, helmet off, braids flowing, face calm, uniform different, flight commander insignia shining in the morning sun. Silence. Then confusion. Then realization. Langston's mouth parted. No words came out. Kincaid dropped his phone. The base screen came to life. Slideshow began. First image, Amara's service record. Second, commendations from classified missions. Third, a still from a mission briefing signed by General Thorne. Then came footage. Bradley Kincaid mocking her in the mess hall. A blurry shot of Langston laughing with senior staff. Documents appeared. Evaluation reports altered. Training hours denied, all time-stamped, all authenticated. Amara stepped up to the mic. Her voice was steady. "You thought I was here to prove something, but I didn't need to prove it to you." She looked around at the stunned faces, at the silence that now spoke volumes. "You built a system designed to keep people like me out. But I didn't come to break your system. I came to show you that I never needed it." Langston stepped forward, his face pale. This is insubordination." General Thorne emerged from the back. "No, Colonel, this is documentation." He raised a hand. Military police entered. Langston's ID was deactivated on the spot. His clearance revoked. Kincaid tried to back away, but 2 officers stopped him. "Mr. Kincaid, we have questions about digital harassment." Amara turned back to the crowd. "To those who stood by and said nothing, your silence was your answer. To those who laughed, your laughter was louder than your words. And to those who see me now and finally understand, let this be the day you start listening." Applause didn't come immediately. It came slowly, then stronger, then the whole hangar. She didn't smile. She didn't bow. She just walked away, past the officers, past the cameras toward the jet, because this wasn't her finish line. It was only her takeoff. 48 hours later, the news broke. Not just on the base, not just in the Air Force, but across every major news outlet in the country. Whistleblower pilot unveils systemic racism in live military broadcast. F-22 demo pilot was target. Discrimination. Now she's a national hero. The footage of Amara's flight had gone viral, but it wasn't the maneuvers that caught fire. It was her words, her composure, her undeniable authority. The sight of a black woman standing in the middle of a hangar full of men who had once dismissed her, that became the image of change. Langston was officially discharged, dishonorably, his pension revoked, his name removed from every official registry within a week. Kincaid was stripped of clearance and banned from federal service. An investigation into digital harassment and cyberbullying began, but it didn't stop there. 17 additional cases were reopened, each linked to the same network of discrimination Amara had exposed. The Pentagon held a press conference. General Thorne stood at the podium. This is not about one pilot. This is about the culture that allowed it. He paused. And the courage of one woman to say, enough. Meanwhile, Amara didn't give interviews. She didn't write a book. She didn't post on social media. She got back to work. But this time it was different. She wasn't just a pilot. She was a symbol. Beacon for those who had been silent too long. The Air Force offered her any post she wanted, any base, any command. She chose something else. She submitted a proposal. The first military academy focused on inclusive excellence, not as a diversity initiative, but as a performance mission. When you waste talent because of bias, she wrote in the opening line, you weaken your force. 6 months later, Fort Bishop reopened with a new name, the Ellison Leadership and Flight Institute. It trained the best and welcomed those who'd never been given a chance to be seen as the best. People from backgrounds no one thought of as standard issue. People who didn't look like yesterday's version of a hero. Amara's office had no trophies, just a photo of her grandmother and a quote framed above the door. Let them whisper. You speak through action. One morning, she received a letter, handwritten, from a young cadet, 17, black from Mississippi. I never thought someone like me could do this, it read, but now I believe, and I'm not afraid to try. She folded the letter slowly, pressed it into her journal, and smiled, not for recognition, but because somewhere out there, a kid who once felt invisible was now aiming for the sky. And that was more than justice, it was transformation. 2 years later, the academy was thriving. Graduates from the Ellison Institute were flying missions, leading teams, rewriting what leadership looked like in uniform, and not just in the U.S. allied nations sent observers. Some sent cadets. The program had become a global benchmark, and at the center of it all, Amara Ellison, no longer sergeant, now commander, now mentor, now legend. The hangar that once silenced her was now alive with voices. Cadets of all races, backgrounds, and identities ran drills beneath banners that read, Skill has no color, leadership speaks loudest in action. One morning, Captain Aviation walked into Amara's office. She held a report. Commander, recruitment is up 40%. We've got the highest minority representation in pilot training in military history. Amara nodded. Not in pride, but in quiet confirmation. The work mattered, not because it was hers, but because it changed what came next. Later that afternoon, Amara received a call. It was from the White House, the president's office. They wanted her to lead a mission, not just any mission. The first all-inclusive multinational space reconnaissance assignment, a crew selected not by pedigree, but by merit, a mission that would orbit the world and reflect it. Amara paused. Give me 48 hours, she said. She hung up, looked at the wall, 2 framed photos side by side. One from years ago, her laying her uniform on a cold hangar floor. The other, her standing beside a group of young pilots, smiling. She thought of her grandmother, of the whisper that became a roar, of the silence that turned into movement. That evening, she read a message on the Academy's forum. It was from a girl in Detroit, 15. It said, I saw your story. I didn't think anyone like me could wear that suit. Now, I'm drawing fighter jets in my school notebook. I'm going to be one of them one day. Amara replied, You already are. She stepped outside. The night sky stretched above like a runway made of stars. She breathed in. The air was different now, not because the world had changed, but because she helped change it. She once said, the best revenge was building something your enemies couldn't destroy. Now, she saw something greater. The real legacy wasn't proving them wrong. It was building a world where no one had to prove themselves just to be seen. The next day, She sent her answer. Yes, I'll lead the mission. And across the country, across the world, children watched her suit up again, not as a symbol, but as a promise that excellence doesn't come from fitting in. It comes from daring to rise. If you felt chills during this story, good. If you felt anger, let it fuel change. And if you felt hope, hold on to it. Because Amara's journey is more than a comeback. It's a blueprint. She didn't rise by destroying her enemies. She rose by building something they couldn't touch, a future, a legacy, a truth louder than hate. To everyone who ever felt like they didn't belong, this was for you. And if this story moved you, share it. Let the world know what happens when you don't just fly, you rise. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay bold, stay loud, and never forget, some uniforms can be taken off. But excellence wears you forever.